Oh my goodness, look at all those resumes. Oh, how am I going to get through all these documents? Typically, they're actually not even printed anymore on these big stacks. It just fills up your inbox, or electronically, you just have all these applications, all these resumes come in. How am I going to review these resumes or CVs so quickly? Oh my gosh, it's just, I've got other things to do too. This is like awful. Okay, that is the inside part of hiring managers and recruiters when the first initial bombardment of resumes and things come through. And so they have to kind of sort through those different types of things. And so in this lesson, I want to really give you the inside behind the scenes look at how I and other managers, particularly effective hiring managers, review resumes and review CVs or whatever it might be that they're reviewing, but particularly let's say like a resume or CV. And understand they're not like embracing it. They're not reading like their favorite book. They're looking through it very, very quickly. So let's talk about that, particularly the quickly part. So in the initial review, and now let's talk about my process, and I'm more conscientious than most people, by the way, because I know the importance of hiring great people. And so the initial review for me, my first screen, that takes about 10 seconds. That's right. Your lovely resume you worked on so hard, I'm going to give you 10 seconds. And actually, that's really good. I'm about 30% better than the next guy because there's an interesting eye tracking survey or study, not survey, but study, showed the average time was 7.4 seconds and people are looking at a resume. And when they talk about eye tracking, they actually have devices and machines. They're actually tracking the eyeballs and what they're looking at and what are they emphasizing and how long they're looking at it. And then you got 7.4 seconds to tell your story or make something compelling pop out. So they'll decide to put you in the let's look closer pile. And understand that even before a human eye looks at it for those wonderful 7.4 seconds, you've already been screened by a machine most likely that's taken milliseconds to look for keywords based on the job description. They're going to look at the keywords like you've got a certain coding programming language or a skill. Maybe it's a soft skill like leadership, and they're going to match that up, and then they're going to spit out who's going to be rejected automatically, and then they're going to have a bunch of things that move on. And then that will then go to maybe a human resource person that might spend, 30 seconds, more like, they might look at it, if they got 10 or less resumes after the machine looked at, they might look at it for 30 seconds before they pass on the hiring manager. Sometimes HR, if they've got a smaller pool, will look a little bit closer because they want to, not look bad in front of the hiring manager, sometimes an executive. And so they want to make sure that they're passing on who they think is good, or somebody's gone through a screening interview or whatever. But when it gets to me, the hiring manager, I'm going to give you my first look as I'm looking through who I'm going to decide to talk to, 7.4 seconds. Typically, I'll give you 10 seconds though. And so your resume needs to be really easy to scan, right? You have a very short time, so it needs to be easy to scan using bolding, bullet points, white space, and things around it. So it's easy to look at. Not a lot of dense text, just that you've got enough white space so it's easy for the human eye to scan. And that with the recruiting manager or hiring manager, especially when it gets to that human level, that they can easily find what they're looking for fast, particularly things that match up with that job description or those key skills, key knowledge skills and abilities, KSAs, that they're looking for. So it's got to be easy to scan, and we'll talk about that coming up. And first, my process, and typical manager process too, I quickly look at it. I'm looking at it and what am I doing for my 10 seconds? I quickly look at the name at the top, right? That gives me that reference point. I'm not going to probably remember your name, by the way. Especially we've got a lot of resumes to go through. I'm just locking my mind like, okay, this is Julie or this is Ganesh. Okay, great. So that's like quickly look at the name. And then I'm quickly scanning, like a lot of times you'll see on resumes where you have a skill list where it's just a lot of skills listed either at the top, sometimes at the bottom, but good thing for the machines to read too is, a list of these skills, just almost like a whole list of skills before you get into your work history. And so I might scan that real quickly, looking for some absolutely key skills that I need to find. Particularly if it's a hard skill, like you need to know a certain programming language or accounting software or a certain software, maybe something as simple as like Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Office. I might be like, this is so core of the job that I'm not going to hire anybody that doesn't have that skill. And I'm looking for just to see if that pops up, right? I'm just like, okay, they got that. Okay, they got that too. Okay, good. And then I'm looking through it. And then I'm looking for that job history. Really titles, I'll look at the company too. I don't care about the company. So some brand name companies, Google, Apple, Amazon, some of these big companies or companies people know might stand out for me. I also, if it's a competitor or somebody in the industry or a well-respected company in the industry, even if they're not a well-known, international company, they might be well-known in my segment. So if I see that name, like, oh, they work for that competitor, that's interesting. That stands out to me. But I'm really looking for those titles to see if I'm hiring for a digital marketing manager, do you have marketing management or marketing experience based on your titles? If it's all accounting, I'm like, this is accounting. Why are they applying for a marketing manager? It's unfortunate that quick, right? And other titles, I'll look at super fast, especially looking through your years of experience. And then I'll be looking, as I look in that job history a little bit, for anything that really pops out, like any proof of results. That's where we'll talk more, and we talked already a little bit about, measurable results, raise sales by X%, reduce costs by this, met this deadline 10 days ahead of time, had this great result for customers or for the company. Those are things that really pop out, not just a job where you're repeating a job description like, well, as a digital marketing manager, I set up email campaigns, blah, blah, blah. I know what the job entails. I wrote a job description probably. What I want to know is how about your successes? I need those to pop out in 7.4 to 10 seconds. I need that to pop out because this is the first look, right? So I'm looking for things that really pop out. Now what happens? Now we got two piles. We got one pile that's the no pile. That's the, gosh, what happened? It seems like I went to a black hole. Something happened, wasn't compelling enough, and I went into this black hole. The other pile is, let's take a closer look. It may be something that I'll print out. Typically, I'll actually print it out. You can let people do it on their computer, but when I get to that second pile, I may print it out when I'm getting down to a smaller pile of resumes. And that's where my second look comes in, right? We just did the first look. Now I'm looking at the second look. And that might take a minute, right? I might spend a minute on 10 to 20 resumes. So I've now devoted 10 to 20 minutes in addition to my first look. And I might look closer at those resumes. I like to do it with actual paper in my hand because I like to use a pen and mark it up. Many others just do it right on their screen if they've got applications submitted digitally. I like to mark them up. Or I make a copy, some legal things, depends on legal stuff. I might make a copy of these and then I mark up the copy, but I don't touch the actual resume. There's legal things from that. If you're a hiring manager, you can get into that, and that varies by country and by province or state or whatever about marking up people's resumes. Again, that's kind of a legal document too. So I'll make a copy so I can mark it up. So I'm marking it up with a pen. I'm circling things. I'm putting check marks. I'm looking for certain stuff. And what am I looking for? Well, when I'm kind of looking for reasons to screen you out, something popped up there that got my attention, and so you move to the second pile, the second look, but now I'm looking for reasons to screen you out, typically. Something great stands out more, I'll note it, but I'm really looking for things that don't match up with the job description. So I'm looking for, are you meeting multiple job description criteria, or was it really just that one thing? I know how to use Microsoft Office. Great. Anything else popping out? No. Okay, I probably wouldn't get that far. There has to be something more compelling than that. But I'm looking for now multiple detailed job description criteria, both hard skills and soft skills. I'm going to get an initial feel for fit. How you're writing, what your background might be, how you might fit with my organization culturally. I might get that initial feel for that. I'm also looking to screen out, is there something bad on the resume? Is there a job gap? Has there been big gaps in employment that are not, explained or something like that, or I might be wondering about. Now, if you've got a lot of other compelling stuff, I'll overlook that and maybe move on to the next pile. But, is there something on there, or like he was in jail for 10 years, I'm screaming at people who are trying to, reclaim their life after jail, but I'm just telling you, there's hundreds of resumes and there people are looking for reasons to screen them out. And does something stand out too? So then you also go beyond screening out, but does something stand out that may be more compelling to keep me moving you through the process? Something intriguing, and something maybe with that initial feel for fit. So sometimes there's just a feeling where you go through and like, okay, I want to look at this a little bit further. So I'm and this is where I'm taking 10 to 20 resumes as a hiring manager. I'm not a recruiter. I'm a hiring manager where I'm really trying to narrow this down on who I want to interview. So now I've gotten from those 10 to 20 resumes, and now I'm looking at my third look. Yeah, I do a third look, and I'll spend a couple minutes on each of those, maybe sometimes longer depending on the resume, but usually a couple minutes. And I'll continue to mark up with my pen. And I might be looking, now I've got the pile down from that second look to 5 to 10 resumes. So I'm looking in great detail at these 5 to 10 resumes. And now I'm looking for reasons to interview you. Why do I want to talk to you? What's standing out that is compelling that makes me want to talk to you? What are some of those numerical successes? What are successes, more than a job description, you're repeating back to me? What is it you've done? What is it that you've accomplished? What is it about your background? What is it about something about you that's compelling that I want to talk to you because I think you're a great candidate? Something intriguing, something I want to learn more about, something I want to get to know. I want to get to know you, right? So that's what I'm looking at now. Now I'm beyond the screening part, unless, of course, I stumble upon something. Now I'm looking for that small group of who I want to interview after the third look. And then what happens? We get sorted into two piles again. One pile is I want to keep as a backup. They didn't make it to the interview stage, but I'm keeping them close because if I go through my initial round of interviews, I don't find a great candidate, I'll reference back to this other pile, right? Because this has already gone through this sorting process from like 5 to 10. So I might have another, 3 to 5 or so in this pile. And then in the other pile, I have folks I want to set up interviews with. And that could be, for me, typically anywhere from 3 to 5 people. Again, depending on the position or how good the resumes that are coming in, that's not a hard and fast number, but for hiring managers, they've got a lot on their plate. They got a lot going on. They're busy folks, just like you are. So they're going to narrow that down. So when you're, it can vary by company. Some company, big company might say, we must interview 20 people or whatever, or at least through the early screening interviews. But when it gets to me, as far as the hiring manager, I might just narrow that down to 3 to 5, great candidates is what I do. And so from that, then I set the resume. And then what happens next, though, I've kind of completed this process. So then what happens next? I go into, I kind of sit back and I reflect, and I have 3 emotions depending on how good the candidates are, really. And this is kind of what they look like. One is, boy, I'm so happy. Look at all these great candidates. I have so many to choose from. I can't wait to talk to them. Or on the other hand, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just not working out. That's the red face, right? I got to do something with my job description or recruiting or something. I got to get better candidates. I don't have anybody who's really good. Maybe I got 1 or 2, but we need to really improve this. This is not working out, and I feel sad. Look how sad I feel. But most times I'm kind of like ambivalent, like, gosh, I'm just glad I'm done with that part. Let's set up these interviews now and get rolling. That's kind of my middle face. So that's kind of what I look like. I don't look exactly like that, by the way. Those are just those are just drawings of what I look like, but those are the emotions I feel. Who cares what I feel anyways? But I'm just telling you, you get through the whole process. You're either going to feel good, or you're going to feel sad, or you're probably going to be like, whew, I'm glad that's done. On to the next task, and I can't wait to talk to these candidates. And my hope for you as we go through the rest of this course is to make you one of those candidates, not for me, but for the job that you want, and with talking with that hiring manager that you want to talk about that's going to make that big change in your future and your career.